And you're being recorded. Skate Crisis 5. I didn't look where we left off last time, but a lot has happened with the Skate Crisis, with Skatability. We can just start off by we're both skating the medium 909 shell in strange turn of events. And I think I was first. And then you tried it shortly after. You were maybe skeptical.
Yep, I changed a lot of my life to downsize. Like I believed heavily in Project Downsize, and I've stated many times on this podcast, that I've never been wrong. That's one of my taglines, and I again was wrong. Medium Ritters, winter shell, as we know. This is a certified winter shell, dead by June or something. Creates large, look at these product jumpers.
Oh, those are nice wheels.
It's a very good wheel. Yeah, basically I'm a pretty cool guy. I'm getting free products from some big companies. It's been a good year. The stock is up at Skatability HQ. The liner, the 909 liner.
Oh, yeah. 10.5, because I think
5, yeah.
I think I have to get the 10.5 and try it in the M shell.
Yeah.
Because it fills it out more. I tried the 10.5 premium on your recommendation, and there was a lot of room. And I feel like this one would push the foot forward just a little bit more with that extra stuff around the top.
Yeah, it's kind of the right position, and like a thing that I don't. I think the thing that you fight with in the shell is like the foot wants to move in this direction a little bit, because I think of this, like, we're more argon boot than M12 here. It's kind of like, it's capacious, one might say, compared to this kind of like this kind of boot, which I think you lose a little like hockey skate response game, but it's very clear that for technically gifted grinders, there's something going on there. There's like good neutral position. Like, we commonly use SK as an example, but like you gotta give it up. Like, the guy makes this this skate work. Like, all the positions work here. Yeah. I like this frame. I think it's good, and it's really not a flat frame. However, the thing that it has that nobody else has is the wall. Like, it has the frame wall thing that hides the wheel, which is more important than the split in most cases. And yeah, I think it's also the lowest. Nothing is lower. And I'm at a point where, like, it's like small trade-offs in any way start to really matter. Like, historically, I've really liked the them frame. 270 on these it's too much for me now. It's just like too much distal weight. And it totally works for some people, but yeah, which I'm feeling super specific lately, and very disappointed if anything kind of deviates from like what's working.
Okay, I'm open. I almost ordered something about February. I end up ordering skate shit.
Yeah.
Talked about it in the winter video. It's some kind of thing that I have that gets me excited for the new season. So it's very close to ordering a fresh set of creates, and we're gonna give it one more go, because the gray ones that I have are very clearly warped from either the mesmer shell or they were warped to begin with. So
yeah, I have actually, I tested something that I wanted to talk with you about, which is that like a few frames that I tested all have the warp problem, though with even a hands press into the skate, like they commonly flatten out, which is kind of disappointing. Like I feel like that shouldn't be the case. That skates would be like rigid enough in some way, but like but I think you're gonna just constantly run into that issue. I think Duran made the from like the manufacturer's perspective that it's something about this technology will effectively always bow in that fashion, especially thinking about like the way that creates are kind of like overbuilt out at the edges. This is completely like speculation on my part, but I'm imagining a plastic thing, with weight down here out at the edges, settling, and it's unlikely that it would do the opposite, right?
I feel like I'm being way too picky about that one lately. But I felt like skates rolled flat more when in the late 90s. Maybe I didn't even notice it. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I'll try and be less picky. I'm going to go in with an open mind on the creates. And those wheels, they're not wheel bitey, the 58s. Also 58s do they fit?
They do. These do with
Okay.
the good bolts and not one of my crazy like cut the half of the bolt off or screw it in, line up the bolt, Sharpie on it, angle grinder, chop it off, hate yourself. Didn't have to do that this time. So I think you're just on the side of good,
Okay.
like on this edge of 58. So they work. And that's much like this, the feeling that you just had about like frames really being flat in the 2000s or the 90s. I think a skate crisis, like one of the tenets of skate crisis should be like works out of the box. The stone tablet of like, we believe we're not asking too much at skate crisis headquarters. That's one of them. So while I know we can do a little bit of like a, beating ourselves up for being nostalgic or something like that, but really, like hardware's got to work. Things have to work out of the box. A stock setup should be functional, etc.
Yeah, that's where the Them 909 still feels like the home base setup, even though the stock frames might be a little heavy. The stock wheels are good. The frames, as somebody who's used to a wizard frame, like I basically did a flat ground. My last session was basically just like flat ground skating in a 909 with fresh stock wheels and a stock frame. It's comfortable. You can wear it for a long time because of what you were talking about. The argon or the out poppy, the extra room above the foot. And then when you switch to a T-neck or a M12, you realize how much bite there is on top of the foot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just that one works very well out of the box. Yeah, although I have not skated stock liner, like skating stock liners, I can't do it. I've thought about it just with like a 909 or like just to see, but it's a wasted session.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I do see sometimes a stock liner, watching someone have like a slider bar skate where it's just kind of like poofy support and kind of like a looseness around the foot. Again, we're coming back to this, I think this continuum that's quite real between performance and enough slop, right? Like the intuition, what intuition brings, the gift of intuition versus like something like just functional sneaker. We live in on a continuum that like I don't know where we actually land on that quite yet, or we start to have the golf bag, the golf bag discussion of a few different tools for a few different things.
I was surprised because slop was something over the years of reviewing different aggressive skates. Slop was a negative term.
Yeah.
But now that a little bit of slop has become kind of it's not a positive term, but it is a way to describe why the medium shell feels good.
Yep.
For movements.
There's a few anecdotes that are still truly anecdotal too, and kind of like deeply within my realm as skatability guy, of like people going to small shell and some curious, people downsizing and some curious nagging injuries coming up, particularly in the hamstring. And so I'm not confirming this. This is just observational in my own body and in a few other people that I know to have done this. And yeah, just a curiosity that I have out there of something that occurs when we're living in this position, of talon feet, like, or yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, I think there may be some prices to pay for downsizing, even when the foot feels like it's totally in there. Yeah, my downsize realization came after a few weeks of frustration in my skates. Rainy day, I'm in my garage, which is set up like a gym with like rubber floors, and I just brought the slider bar in there, set up some mediums, and started just like stalling, feeling the stuff out, and I was just like, you fucking idiot. Like again you're learning this lesson. Yeah.
It's been a couple times now, I think, for me personally. Like I think it's been 2 or 3 times where I've gone back after leaving home, going on a quest, and then I come back home, and every time.
Yep.
It's good. And it's a little sloppy, but it's a good sloppy. And the hamstring thing I was thinking about, as you were talking, I clenched my foot.
Right.
And I could feel stuff around my knee, stuff around my upper leg. That's even if I just think of my big toe clenching just a little bit, I can feel the inside muscle on my leg. So my thing was I was getting pins and needle. I would have a really good session and the schmedium would feel good. And that would be kind of pins and needly on my big toe.
Oh no.
And I would catch myself in my kitchen, just standing there doing dishes, and I would catch my right foot would still be clenched up in a traumatic position. So foot stretching.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's something to just keep on the back burner, as far as like, and if you're having similar experiences, I'd be very curious to hear. Let me know. Anybody out there in the skate crisis universe. Yeah, I guess there's something about what's actually satisfying, like what you're looking for. To further my point, I guess the setup I was riding up until about last week was this, but the new them 55 black wheels on here, which was quite a comfortable create setup in some ways. Like it's pretty forgiving and maybe even too small out of the box. And coming back to this wheel, there are two things that I was reminded of, and on the subject of like what we find satisfying on skates, where like 58 and 55 are very different feeling. There's a threshold, like 56 is a real threshold between like toy and something else, like toy and tool. I can see some utility for both, but also no one will be surprised if you've listened to me talk for any period of time, but like this is a nice soft wheel. I'm so much happier on an actual soft wheel, a non energy thief, like a shock absorbing rebound heavy wheel. It's just like, it's a non I don't know, sometimes it feels silly to talk about this distinction because like back in the day, was anybody ever like, oh, the 91's a little much for me, I suppose I'll never. But like for me at this point, it's like the difference between having fun and not having fun. Like it might be the dominant force in that in that field is like yeah, not just chronically leaking energy, into like a create, which is not the most responsive frame to me, into a hard small wheel. Like we're at a point where some of those little tweaks add up, and I need to stay in like an energy producing skate or state. Otherwise, I effectively feel useless, which I'm already good enough at feeling. So I don't need any help at that.
Yeah, 87A was actually something from my youth. It was a medium Jake Elliott wheel that I skated flat. Maybe it was 54, I can't remember, but I do remember being younger and those wheels stood out. That they wore faster, but I remember I did a lot of really good skating in them, and that's where we got the number from. We first did a 80 millimeter 87, and when we did that, we were like, holy shit, these feel good, because that was a weird one. We usually did 85 for big wheels, and then we're thinking of maybe just doing it for everything now. We'll see. I think 60 might be too much, but when we tried the 58, 87, we couldn't believe how much of a difference it made, because 88A even now is underrated. And I think 88A was maybe more popular when there was a lot of 88A wheels stock, possibly. We would need some kind of a pie chart of what the percentage was, but I feel like they were softer.
Yep.
For stock.
Definitely feels that way. Something feels like 90 feels a little harder than I'm used to, and there's definitely variety between manufacturers. I'm certain that standard is not, there's no like durometer, National Institute of Durometer that's going around and like, calibrating these tools. It's probably like one guy set the machine at La Beta to the 88 number and then quit, 15 years ago. And they're like, oh, fucking Barry set that to 88. So that's just what we use there.
But yeah. the T-Neck stock wheels and the them stock wheels, I love them because they kind of feel like 88. They don't.
Right. Same.
That's why they're good.
Yes, yeah. That's why they're good.
And are they the same? I mean, this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but I swear that the T-Neck stock wheels and the them stock wheels are exactly from the same place.
I heard this too, but I haven't confirmed that. I heard it from a reliable source, but it's,
okay,
hearsay.
This is a good time to transition to them skates and Skatability, since we've last talked.
Oh yeah.
I was so surprised. Like, it was amazing to see. There's merch. There was you went to NYC. You did one. We hadn't talked about Blading Cup. We haven't done this since Blading Cup, have we?
Yeah. So it has been the last quarter of this year for me. Just went like, flew by, and we're already into February here in 2025. Man, I could say that, yeah.
You've hit the big time, which we'll talk about as well if you feel any responsibility now.
Yeah.
But you can just first talk about how Skatability has evolved since our last.
In a lot of ways, so the end of this year was the kind of closure of like what felt like the first active chapter of Skatability. I've been, plowing away at this for a few years in, small cryptic ways, right? Like go out with Danny and Stu and work out and post Skatability stuff, and people are like, what the hell is that? What is this cryptic exercise project? That, are you Canadian? You know, any of these kinds of things. And so the start of this year, I just felt like, much like you've been encouraging people to do, you know, I hit a limp. I was like trying to figure out what platform it should live on or how it should exist. And I was just like, Patreon, whatever, put it out there, you know, build it in the process. And, you know, had a few attempts at kind of making it look like some classically oriented strength training platforms, with not a great deal of return on that. But the weekly class that I've been doing has been super steady and at least decently attended every week, and has had some incredible weeks. You know, especially early on, when people were trying it out, it was very special to see Shane Coburn, Colin and Sean, you know, like Danny, Stu, Seth Miner, folks from Australia, folks from Tasmania, Gab Drum, like just what a cross section of skaters. Mike Garlinghouse, like an honor to be able to host this thing that's like that lands somewhere in the middle of a number of things within skating, right? It's not really much of a product. It's not really you know, a performative display like a section or something. It's, you know, this new landscape that I believe in, that's like the practitioner. You know, people that like want to continue to skate, and it doesn't have a lot to do with this, in some ways, silly origins of action sports, right? Which a thing that I recently keep stumbling over is just feeling like this whole thing is just, you know, like a clever marketing ploy for different products. You know, that's like where we're all these like drones, sort of like, you know, selling Paul Mitchell hair products and Slim Jims and shit. And, you know, now that timeline has kind of collapsed, and we're all out here still trying to like hone our craft. So that, I guess that helps me feel like it's increasingly necessary. So inside, that's where I feel like Skatability has kind of evolved across the year. And I've been doing at different intervals, you know, in-person workshops, which have mostly been very graciously hosted by John at Blade Cup. And with, I think some people behind the scenes, you know, encouraged John to think about this kind of collaboration. And he approached me with the idea of doing a workshop around the opening of the New York store. And yeah, I mean, absolutely great time for me. It was like a supremely cold but beautiful New York day. If you've been to New York in the winter, there's this like very sideways light that kind of like comes past the buildings and through the trees. So if you're in parks, you know, there's like these wild tree shadows all over the ground, like very vibey New York. If you've ever seen a movie from New York, it's that kind of look. And we're in a, you know, like a basketball court where you would probably expect to see people like doing their kind of Tai Chi sort of vibe, very like martial arty. And it was 20 degrees and, you know, below zero for you guys. And lots of people came out, and yeah, it was, you know, John was in there too, and support from Sam Leviton and John Ortiz. And an exciting thing for me about those workshops is that, and I don't know if people who consider, you know, like having me at their event wonder if I'm using it as like a promotional opportunity. My experience at doing an in-person workshop is that I look at it almost fatalistically, like, if this is my one chance to be with you, you know, like what might I want to introduce you to, and not like sign up for my shit. And I think people seem to respond to that because it's, to me, it seems like the appropriate kind of like partnership. So as a result, it's a very exciting, like, I hold myself to a certain standard of like, did I deliver on that level of like communicating something that feels unique for this group and for this moment. And this one was tough because it was so cold, and it, you know, like, I'm not going to make everybody get on the snowy, freezing ground and roll around and do a number of things. So we were a little bit more limited than we have been in some other circumstance, but I think it went well, and I think it went well for the shop as well. And it also allowed for like a skate day, and made a little edit with Sam and John, which, like, you know, you have to allow your like teenage self in the mix there to be like, yeah, pretty cool. I guess I'm just doing a Wagyu skate day with John Julio. No big deal. So yeah, and I don't know how to say this without being a little too self-aware. Like, John is very good at like at being himself, like the role that he's in. You know, he is like, he's juggling multiple things and also finds a way to like lift you up and make you, you know, like feel seen as a skater. And yeah, like, very, I kind of, it took me much of the holiday season to kind of like, you know, relax and just like, you know, feel a cool opportunity have happened, and not talk to myself like I commonly do when something good happens, and just go like, that wasn't real. Yeah. So sorry, long-winded answer, but I'm still kind of reflecting on it, and you know, I want to do more in-person workshops and increasingly make that my work in the world. So each one is another opportunity to go like, you know, how do I make this accessible and sustainable? Accessible for others to attend, and you know, like, seemingly inviting, and also from my end, like, make it a business. Which I'm usually about 2 steps behind on that, but I think I think people seem to find that endearing about me, like, or they sort of pity that clearly lacking component to my personality. So it might work out in my favor from a marketing standpoint.
Is there another one coming then? Do you have another one planned?
Winter Clash. Yeah.
You're hitting the big time now. I like. That's not Blading Cup.
That's not Blading
Cup. This is a whole different thing.
I can't drive to Winter Clash. I could drive the Blading Cup. I don't think my car would make it there either. But yeah, it's also, I've never been to Europe before.
Yeah, I was going to ask that next. If you had never to Europe, so then you'll be experiencing Europe and the skating culture over there for the very first time.
Yeah, it's yeah, basically like Jonas and Yo-Yo invited me last year. I couldn't quite make it happen, and then basically this year, a collaboration between them and John, you know, having like done the merch that we did, some of the proceeds from the merch and some of, like, you know, the sponsorship money that John puts into Winter Clash, he kind of like negotiated to support me getting there. So yeah, this will be like, you know, further the kind of next indication of our collaboration. It'll be like Skatability brought to you by them skates. So yeah, shout out to fucking John for you know, believing in that part of the process and seeing other ways that, like, you know, people can contribute to this canvas of what's happening in skating that aren't just you know, who wins the comp or whatever. And also like people come to those events, and I think it's a great way to like make it participatory, because competitions are such a like a Thunderdome, only so many people can survive in that kind of thing, or even get some tricks in on the side. And yeah, I think this is a way to yeah, just kind of like enrich that. And from my perspective, I always have shit to say, so it's for me, it's an opportunity to try and get some of that stuff out that I think doesn't get communicated only in the physical culture. Yeah.
Two things came up there. One, my coworker who skateboards, we joke once in a while about like the hell ride thing in skateboarding.
Oh, yeah.
That it's refreshing to have anything that just is the opposite of that,
Right.
or represents people getting older, maybe being healthier, maybe philosophy, or having conversations that go a little bit deeper. So I love that Skatability has all of that around it, because the action sports like like
Right.
flames and beer, and which is like, I think it can be both, but I love when the other side of it starts to evolve.
Yeah. That's precisely where I'm coming. Like I've been looking. I think I've even mentioned this in the past, but like martial arts come up as a like a parallel flight for me in a lot of this, where like there's some martial arts. There's like street fighting, which one might look at like as a martial art to some degree. That would kind of be the hell ride, like some kind of backyard bare knuckle circumstance, right? Pretty similar. And then there's something like Tai Chi, which is like a martial art for sure, but in a completely different way. Or something like capoeira, which is like very like companion oriented and participatory. And I think the onus is those of us that are not on the Pabst Blue Ribbon through a flaming loop side of things. It's on us to raise our voices a little bit, and like, not in like a activist sort of way, but like, yeah, just show some other sides to this thing. Yeah.
That brings up the second point, and why I recorded that video yesterday. I used to be kind of bummed out that rollerblading felt so action sporty, so the same as trying to do what skateboarding was doing or BMXing. But I've watched so many good videos lately. The products seem to be exciting a little bit more, at least. The people that are involved, I was trying to bring this up, but like everybody who's involved wants to be involved.
Yeah.
And that rollerblading actually feels like it's evolving into something a little bit more mature and different. We still will skate the same objects and things like that, and you still have to film a video with a zoom lens or a fisheye. But I'm very excited about where things are at right now. And Skatability is one part of it, but you look at Durant. I named all the people. Every company has somebody that skates behind it. It's insane that it's got to this point, but it's what the other cultures sometimes that get pillaged, or private equity, or buyouts, or shareholders and bean counters. There's just none of that, and it's a very pure thing. And we don't have the youth. We've talked about this before. We don't have the youth mocking, like, mushroom blading is supposed to be the lamest thing to the youth, and me making these videos, but there's really not a lot out. There's not a whole lot else out there standing in opposition to anything that anybody's doing. We're getting older, and we're all making and doing stuff. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think there's kind of only an option where you're like scrimmaging how it should work, right? That there should be this like dominant, what's the word? Like heterodox, the version of what mushroom blading was in 2003, right? Where like Whereas now, you know, in many ways, like the heterodox voice has become kind of dominant culture. Like pretty much everyone agrees, right? Like, yeah, we want to do this in a way that doesn't like, I mean, there's still some loud voices, right, that are like, you know, still hungry for, you know, like the diminishment of the body, you know, like what comes with being willing to hurt yourself. And that's like, that's what brought me here too. But there's the only choice I really see is to focus on what we are, you know, like the people that are here. I'm kind of like bored, frankly, by the, um, you know, it just doesn't really feel like my role so much to be doing, to be like in a, like an outreach position or like, you know, clamoring for these, for this, you know, like youthful upstarts to be the ones that should supplant older voices, or, you know, like make the case for why we're lame, which would be fine, but like it's just not here. So but I am distinctly interested in like everyone that's here. Um, yeah, and the I had an experience shopping in Vancouver a couple weekends ago at like a fucking cool store, like a place that like 10 years ago maybe I would have been like kind of like pumped to be in there. And it was like, you know, like they're making stuff in this, plenty of things are cool about this particular retail space, but like at this age in my life, I couldn't care. You know, I couldn't care about the kind of case they're making for, you know, retail and including some vintage pieces that are all curated in a particular way, and old industrial sewing machines that are like making your, you know, stuff on the spot. Like I felt like when my dad would take me to a skate shop and I could feel like he was doing me a favor, right, at like letting me indulge in my thing, but like, you know, it wasn't speaking to his soul. And there's something about the things that border on action sport culture, right, that like the fashion component to it and the attitude and the image and all these things that have been, you know, pulled and plucked and dragged in a way to like, you know, make some of these things relevant, where like I'm so I couldn't fucking care. I you know, like I think also some things to me feel kind of sorted out with respect to that stuff. Like, you know, pants will and style will wane and shift in some ways, but I kind of feel like in the last 5 years we've sort of figured out like, hey, this is pretty much what looks good with this stuff. And you know, you guys will, you know, people will fuck with it in some way, but like, you know, like we kind of get it. Whereas, you know, like when Jenkos came out or something like that, there's this like rule breaking new technology that's like, you need this pant that looks distinct from all others, so you must have this or you're lame. um Whereas I kind of feel like, yeah, military fatigues are like pretty good. You can get them for $30 on eBay. Like, you know, we don't really need to do this song and dance with you know, some company that's trying to nuzzle its way in to like make this thing, you know, fashionable or like latch onto it. um have we talked about like skateboard shoe economy in the last couple episodes?
No, I've talked a bit about it with my friend at work, and I know that they're screwed right now. That they're in the opposite state of what boot companies are in rollerblading. Yeah.
Yeah, and they fucking deserve it. A few months ago, or maybe even like a year ago, I started occasionally seeing skateboard shop, you know, pop up on my feed and so proudly displaying their shoe display. That's just like Nike, New Balance, Adidas, Vans, you know, Asics, where it's like, You guys are doing the fucking learn the downsize upsize lesson, 12 times again. Which of these companies is going to stick around? When you had America S, even fucking Fallen, right? Like, not my favorite shoe company / image in the world. Skater owned company when it started. Yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of confused about that, like race to effectively get like 6 people a career or something. Like it's the best we can do.
It's
You know?
it's the cyclical tale of
Yeah.
action sports that like how much money does it take to get somebody to and the classic like we love the illusion of assembling this team of people. It's so weird. Like I'll be watching a skateboard video and it'll seem very street. The video will be very well put together, and it's still so bizarre to me seeing Adidas or Nike within that. It's just that feeling of it being a giant commercial. Whereas when I'm watching a rollerblading video, it's still a commercial or an advertising thing. But it just feels a little bit more grounded that the people behind all these companies skate, even the bigger companies. Like even Tom Heiser is still involved in rollerblade.
Yeah.
And I watched the recent one with Gabrielle Hayden. Did you watch the?
It like just came out yesterday or today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I haven't seen it yet.
there was people skating Mesmers, people skating 909s, like stuff like that. I love. I
Oh man.
love when it's not like when it's not that it was a I guess a homie video or a city video. Um, that's the best. Where it's not a brand related thing. More of that.
Completely. Yeah. Like I think the brands need to hear this too, because they're obligated to work in a certain way. But I think especially with what the current sort of like what would you call it? Like
Market blading.
yeah, or like manufacturing schedule that we're kind of on.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's like it's almost hard to look back at footage that's even like 2 years old, where you're like, oh, that's Ritter era, that's Moopy skate era, that's like, oh, they did the second launch of the Bone Whites. Then it's a little bit like jarring, where yeah, again, I don't mean to be on my nostalgia thing. It didn't used to feel that way to me. Like everyone was in this, but like that's the way that I guess that's because also like skate lines used to often launch with a few skates at once. And parts would get intermingled, and obviously some people are doing like, Sean deserves some kind of royalty for like his psychotic setup collection and displaying.
Oh,
Um,
and Steve in the Dino video had some very beautiful 909 setups.
yeah, totally. Whereas like Nick also in the Dino video, shout out to both of those guys.
Oh
Nick
yeah, Mesmer 909. Yeah, yeah. Same thing.
and Nick skated one setup. He very intentionally skated one setup throughout that whole thing. Like didn't even put new sole plates on them, demolished
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Um,
Respect. I've told myself that multiple times that I want to do that,
yeah.
and my brain's broken and it can't.
Right. What you're obligated. You're carrying a large burden for all we skate crisisers out here. You're throwing yourself on the pile of gear. You know.
It felt good to finally say it. I woke up I woke up yesterday morning and I was like I just have to say finally that like I can't turn this shit off.
Yeah.
And it was also important to say that I can't test everything, which I don't know what you have to say on that, but the pressure is just going to be more and more. Like obviously the 901 I'm very interested in.
Hmm.
The Echo, or sorry, the Icon, I got peer pressured, and it was Ben. It was right on the line. It was like, is Ben still going to be friends with me if I pre-order this skate? But it pushed the tech enough where I have to give it a nod and try it, but it's rough branding wise. It's rough to. I'm not an IQON guy.
Yeah.
But do you? I probably get it more than you, but do you get peer pressure or messages to test stuff? Because you're more defined in your skate crisis. You're a little bit more narrow. You haven't put videos out of trying.
Right. I almost have to hold myself back there because I have a huge like curiosity impulse, or historically have had a huge curiosity impulse to test this stuff and also to give things their sort of fair shake. And a few things I think have helped provide that from the outside. One is like, it's worth mentioning that like while I'm getting some support from a particular skate brand and I'm, loyal to that, I'm definitely like a servant of skates innovation, and like have a few projects behind the scenes going on too to help expand that, hopefully, which like we'll probably hopefully we'll be able to discuss in the next couple episodes or something. But I also quite like, I think there are enough tech updates or just like hopefully quality of life improvements that seem present on the IQON that I thoroughly encourage you to try it, and I hope it's great. Much like one of the things, the eyelets, the like aluminum eyelet grommet things.
Huge, yeah.
Come on, dude. It's like, yeah, anything that pulls this thing like away from a toy and into I fully support. I'm still disappointed that like, fucking Kaiser has dropped a sole frame. Like we have a functional sole frame that fits 0 skates on the market.
I don't even. I'm not even sure it fits the IQON. I thought it did.
It fits Solomon's. Like there's something quite hilarious, and I'm sure they will. It's probably like a product launch thing, but like the whole goal. I don't think any carbon skate has outer non-UFS connectivity yet, and I'm certain that they'll do that, and that will be great. I think that'll open up. That makes that whole skate possible on a number of fronts to me, and it was also quite obvious and like simple. I don't know. It's really easy for me to kind of like hurl stones with no manufacturing intention, but some of these things just feel like, can we please? Like it's just so fucking obvious. But there was one other thing I was gonna say there.
Sole frame.
Yeah,
IQON.
I am. That's the
T-neck.
That's the tech that I want. I believe in sole frame. I will like. It needs to be here. I've tested the medium T-neck with the Schmedium boot, which we talked about last time, I believe. Doesn't fit. I tested this boot with the large T-neck. Doesn't fit. There's gonna be a need for like midsole technology, I believe, if that circumstance is going to work. Because like even if you like popped a heel underneath this and bolted it to something flat, like this is not a flat platform like what the IQON represents. Like the IQON is a flat boot.
Yeah.
That's quite flat and engineered to be that way. And yeah, like less. I don't like Frankenstein anything, despite what might seem. I want something to work out of the box. As far as like, there's like another layer to that again, I don't know the actual math on this. This is like just my intuitive read that there is, I believe from a manufacturing standpoint, the path to a boot company seems less significant than it once was. And I don't know about anyone's financials, right? I don't know anything about Echo's financials. I don't know anything about TNEC's financials beyond what I've said, that like I think they're undercharging out of the gate, which like their prices have come up, which is not a surprise. We're also in like a Western civilization is in a strange downward slide at the moment in some ways.
What's more than a slide?
Right. We will probably actually be rounded up for having this international conversation between our subtly cold warring nations. Yeah, but also if you could donate to both of our Patreons, because we're going to be tariffed up both of our asses just to talk here. Anyway, this path to boot company seems less significant in some kind of way, and so at some point I think we have to recognize, and I know manufacturers are feeling this, and brands are feeling this, where they're like, it's the kind of cute moment where suddenly there's like 12 options that we have, that is that there's something quite like, there's a consumer win, consumer lose line there, where like maybe you have 12 options and they all suck, which is in some ways the case right now. Like there's not a lot of distinction between them. And I think well-informed, shoppers and customers and participants need to be, doing the right thing in that circumstance. And it's not up to me to tell you what the right thing is, right? But that's a place where I'm like, there are some brands that to me clearly I know nothing about Echo at all. This is coming from a complete place of ignorance. When I look at the boot, and I've never even held one in my hand, but I'm like, and again, knowing what little I know about Chinese manufacturing, I'm like, that's a fucking open mold clone of a 909. And like, maybe they support your favorite skater, and maybe they donate $1 million to, an owl sanctuary in, Northern California or something. Like, do whatever you want with your money. There's just a place where I'm like, you have to kind of like draw some lines and go like, no real distinction between certain raised heel skates. Like that might be a certain political position where you're like, they basically feel the same to me. Or like a company that really like what's going on with TNEC. Like that's a brand, like love what they're doing, and a brand I support. They don't make a skate in my size. The medium's way too small and the large is way too big. So that's a place where I'm like, cool. Until otherwise, I just couldn't. That's a place where I can't go. But yeah, so I think people have to make. I think it's valuable for us to hold some of these distinctions where I'm like, Cougar's not for me. Like that's a hard line. And not in some like, I'm fucking cooler than this or blah blah, or this isn't core. Like I'm a dork. I have always been a skate dork. I would, if something really served me with the sole frame, like buddy, I'm putting it on. But no one is really serving my needs. So I would encourage people to kind of like make your case, right? Which is like, what do you need, or what do you see as like, not serving the whole, because I think we're going into like a shrinking market. And I think while I'm with you that there's a lot to be optimistic about, I also think that things are quite tenuous You know, locally being within skating, and of course like globally. So yeah.
I can't even believe that I can't believe blank is releasing something new. I can't believe Roses is still putting stuff out. I can't believe Faction's launching another plastic. It's
Yeah.
again, like, are we just, is everybody doing volunteer work because we love doing this? Like, is everybody in the red and we just want to have a hobby? Because that
I'm
could be where we're at.
I'm pretty sure that is what it is. I learned this from my friend Dan Bjorky, who is a guitar maker, and has worked on lots of instruments that I own. And he's a like immensely talented individual, and he has tried many things, much like a skate maker or a small manufacturer. You know, he's done everything from hand carving guitars out of a block of wood to like looking at CNCing guitar bodies and laser cutting them. And you know, he had this experience at a guitar show where he went up and he started, you know, going and talking to his version of Clark, right, or his version of John, you know, guys that are like making their big and small guitar companies, you know, work on some level. And the thing that he came home with was like, oh, all of these guys have like their wife is like a doctor or something. You know, there's like there's always somebody back here that's holding this wild ship together, which like again, you know, I know I'm not making any case about anyone's circumstance,
Yeah.
but it's a
Yeah.
fun thing to consider that you're like, uh, oh yeah, we are all doing volunteer work, and thank goodness for like the wonderful women in our lives who are footing the bill and for some reason love us.
And that's not even a bad thing that this thing's been going for this long with this many people caring about it. Obviously, you want to see it succeed, but that's where you do. Part of the reason I released when everybody voted on the brands they cared about the least, and I did
Yeah.
the press conference. I
Right.
mean, you could have a stronger industry of something like that. Not exactly those in that order of those brands, but it could be healthier if it was a smaller number and the consumers within 5 years have decided these are the ones. But it feels like it's going to go in the other direction for longer, where we're more likely to get more brands than less.
I'm kind of at a state where I'm like I'm sort of at a loss because like what's the fucking alternative? Because like an alternative that we've commonly been offered, right, is the balloon thing, where it's like, oh, hook onto this cool brand, and then you'll blow up the economy with like non-action, like kind of like wallflower participants, you know, who are like they like its association with X or Y brand, but they're not true believers. And no disrespect. I don't want this to be a boys club of like only high performers or something, or only the dedicated. Like I would like to sense a way in, but it seems like we just keep doing this thing where we're looking for some like ladder out that's like, you know, if it gets in the Barbie movie, you know, that'll get these people. And I just feel like I don't, for me, like I don't fucking care. I don't believe in it. I think it's foolish, and I'm tired of it. I just want to like, we're all here. We have limited time. Like, you know, let's make things that serve the population that's here for it.
Very
Yeah,
well said.
thanks.
Shane Coburn posted this parkour video of these two, like, they seem to be older women in Vancouver, and just their process of doing parkour stuff. And it was like, the future of action sports feels like people who you would just never expect to be involved
Yep.
doing stuff, and it gets you more hyped than any rehash of tricks that we've seen in the past 20 years. Something about, like, even in skateboarding, there's a couple characters recently that I've watched was like, that guy does not look like he's supposed to skate, or I don't even know if he's going to land this, or who is this person.
Yeah.
That the shiny kind of athlete thing, which is still great to have, it'll always be around. There's some kind of every man or every woman thing that gets me very hyped that I wish there was more of, instead of propping up people on a team.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's missing from marketing too, and brands, and not completely, but there's bits and pieces of it.
Yep. You have to have some it's a challenging thing, though I think there's a big reward on it. Like we've talked about like Kayla, I think did that very well in the Brain Dead video, where like her skating and that thing collided in a way that was like, this both looks cool and also has a component to it that's like, oh, I like, how do I say this kindly? Like, I think I could do that. And that thing that I think I could do is cool enough to be in the video. Like that's a way to get people involved. Or also that person looks more like me than, like whatever, like flap hat muscle guy thing I'm doing or whatever, so there was another point I was going to make there, but like, that's a place where you start to find some of that like blue ocean stuff. Like I think Billy's doing a great job with that with Mesmer. Like that's clearly part of their brand, that they're like, trying to bring other voices and other images into the conversation and into like the field of play. And there's also something, I guess this is more like where part of the case that I'm trying to make about like, much like an older person doing parkour, or like people continuing to skate beyond 40, 50, 60, is the notion of it as like a healthy thing. And like maybe even healthier than like the common things that we've been told. Like tons of people come to me and they're like, I need to stretch more. And I assume that my position would be like, of course, Ben thinks I should stretch more. Stretching is universally good. Or I need to do more yoga. Yoga is universally good. Like, that's not the case I'm making. I might suggest that, in fact, I probably am suggesting that like a little bit of something you're afraid of, a little bit of something that pushes you beyond, pushes you outside of your comfort zone, and the like attaching meaning to something, like that's quite an integrated act, right? Like to think of a physical pursuit that's completely disintegrated, right? Might be like isolating my bicep, like there's a purpose and there's utility and it's probably good for you, but like jumping down 3 stairs safely with slightly wet pavements for a newish skater, like there's something about that it's in some other place where like, imagination and fear and other things that come into play that aren't just about like, is my muscle long or short, or pumped or unpumped, or am I cute, and yada, will I look good in a bathing suit, and like am I healthy, is my body fragile or indestructible, or like it's some other kind of thing that I still struggle to like get to the point of.
I think it'll take longer for rollerblading to get there. I think it's something that quad skating did very well at the beginning, which it seems to be fading out a little bit. But they had that.
Yeah.
Well, they did the thing, the thing happened where they let the people in. We don't have to go into it, but the same story happened. Not for all of quad skating, but it was just interesting to watch that happen.
Yeah. I have a lot of feelings about that.
You don't have to go there.
Yeah, and I'll keep it to a minimum at the moment, but like Yeah. You're saying that I agree. Mostly, I think that has to do with a lot of the individuals and kind of their orientation as they came into quad skating, which was very access heavy, you know, and it encouraged a lot of their vision, and many of them were like very talented, you know, and some of those visions produce that experience of like, I think I could do that. It looks familiar, looks cool, looks like me, looks like my friends, and those things are great. There's something going on now with like companies telling their riders they can't ride rollerblades and stuff. That's very real, um, and that like I'm and I don't know why, right? It to me it feels like that Dave Carney thing was such a tell, and
Oh
people,
man.
I think people would even like dispute that yeah, you know, but I think it's more deeply ingrained that it's like, you know, it's like Powell or something, you know, like Skate One, like eulogy sneaking by within Skate One because of a handshake deal that existed sometime before, you know, like I'm just so those lines to me are just repulsive, and um in a world that has become um like increasingly intolerant of intolerance, it's one of those things where it's like it's this weird little polyp that people refuse to let go of, you know, where like you would meet people who would be progressive on 6 other fronts, but they're still like you know, like it's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where they're like absolutely I'm an ally on these 6 fronts, but I don't want to see a rollerblader just shaking it out on my I just can't, I just don't want to imagine it. It's disgusting. It makes me sick, right? It mirrors the same way that intolerant people would treat like, you know, queerness historically, where like you still have this thing like stuck in you that you no longer can express, right? In the way that like when we were, you know, in high school or something, and people would routinely call stuff gay or whatever. Whereas now they're like, I still gotta get it out somewhere, and the only place I can do it is on those gay fucking rollerbladers, you know? Yeah. Anyway, uh,
Yeah, one point on that. I posted I was listening to the Bomb Hole podcast, and it was some snowboard filmmaker from the 90s, one of the big names, and I posted that clip where he
oh
said worst trend was rollerblading. I'm like, what is he talking about now, or is he talking about, like, is that just his brain just referenced that because he couldn't think of anything else, that he's so used to saying it? And I remember clicking on his profile. It was all social justice
right.
for everything else.
Not surprised.
And there he and it's that one's still, like you said, it's like a knee-jerk reaction or a programming or something
Right.
that I clicked on one or two of his things, and he was arguing with people in the comments about, yeah, social justice stuff, but said the rollerblading thing.
Yeah.
So bizarre. I was so curious though. I almost would have been more excited if he would have had an example of that he didn't like it currently today, but he
Yeah.
seemed like the age where he just had to say it.
We should have him on the pod, you know?
I was gonna at him in because I polled. It was a
Right.
poll about like old head, or I can't remember what. I was gonna at him just to surprise him that the rollerblading community was judging his answer, like if he was
Right.
old head or knee jerk reaction, or I think a lot of people chose like he was talking about rollerblading, that it was even just a weird reference in 2025.
Well, yeah, we're also like that we're like, oh, is he talking about us? Nice. We got mentioned. Sick.
Oh, this perfectly segues into, so you going into the fashion store, right?
Yeah.
I had this moment. I was surprised. I almost had a bodily reaction to this shit. That Evan Fong, is that his name?
Oh yeah.
This music video, I didn't know who he. I thought there's like the Joji guy. Remember, Pink Guy was like a internet figure. There was a guy wearing a pink suit, and then he became Joji, like a pop star, an internet pop star.
I don't think I
You don't
caught.
have to know him. Oliver Tree.
Of
Have you
course.
heard of that guy?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched this music video of this guy named Evan Fong, and he's watching the very first rollerblade promo on a thrift store wall, and there was like somebody doing a torque. It was the most bizarre thing. And then he becomes a character. He like grabs skates and gets inspired and becomes a filmer character. Even the carriage, remember the hyper wheels? The woman in the baby carriage, Hoax 3, they knock over the baby carriage and all
Yeah.
the wheels come out. Even there's like a baby carriage that he knocks over at the beginning. I don't know if that was a reference to that, but this music video, I hated it. I hated the song. I hated the 90s mixed with 2000s nostalgia. I hated it. Felt like it was going to be a launch for the brain dead V3 skate, the way it looked and felt. I'm sorry. Like I just don't. And it was a hard line where I felt very old but comfortable with being old. And so he's probably 10 years younger, and maybe he's like, maybe he played the aggressive inline game. Anyways, I found out he's a big YouTube gamer guy with like 18 million subscribers. And so this is a character like Oliver Tree that he's launched. And
Got
then
it.
when I clicked on his Instagram profile, did you see the Daily Bread covers where he had photoshopped
Oh
himself
no.
in? He had photoshopped himself into different Daily Bread photos as like a rollerblader filmer guy.
Yep.
And I hated all of it. I knew there was like maybe some people who skate who might be listening to this who were in the music video, and maybe he's really into skating, but the whole thing was not for me. It felt so weird. I was trying to think about the time range from now until early 2000s. So it was like the version of making fun of like 80s aerobics when I was in the early 2000s, but it was this weird mix of fashion and like Blink 182 mixed with hyperpop, and that he was a YouTuber, a gamer YouTuber launching a pop career, but then playing a rollerblade filmer character that I couldn't tell if he was making fun of it or if he was an Oliver Tree, which it makes me hate it even more if it's a YouTuber doing an Oliver Tree rollerblade filmer character. Anyways, I can't describe why I hated it, and it could be old head take, but I just wanted to share that. And everybody mostly loved it, so I'm missing something.
I have a couple of things to say on this. One, I think you and I are both sensitive to this alienation feeling, um, especially within our thing, probably because um, this is a place I've historically felt comfortable or felt not alienated, even when there are disparate visions, right? Like, it's sort of like there's this landscape that you're within, and nothing that I do looks like what Ollie Short does, but like I like what Ollie Short's up to, or like was up to. Even that's like an old head take. But there's something culturally happening. And I was listening to a comedian that I love, and he was talking about the experience of walking up to a comedy club that he has, developed lots of material at, kind of like his home turf. And like he walked up to the door, and like a 10-year-old kid on a scooter rolls out, which is like not what you expect to roll out of a classically an adult space, right? Like a comedy club that's open till the wee hours in the morning. And the comedian's like, "What the hell's going on in here?" And he's like, "Oh, there's some like YouTuber that's like giving basically like the equivalent of like a TED talk, right?" And he's like, "What?" And it's like, "Well, he sells tickets." And it was also describing how at this point, certain kinds of success hinge on having a kind of second thing, right? Like the likelihood that like fucking like PewDiePie, someone like PewDiePie could drop a record today, any kind of music, and it's gonna go, right? Like, I mean, obviously no one's making any money selling records or whatever, but like, I've been classically trained musician, been practicing for 20 odd years or something. Like my record's not going to do anything, but there's some people that, and not that I'm not a woe is me here. I'm just the example where like there's some people like the comedian in this case who would feel like it would be a bit like the guy making the music video drops say that music video goes crazy, like 200 million views or something, and then he uses that popularity to drop his skate part or something, where there's like, I think some of us are yearning for this, like dedicated to the craft kind of thing, but and much like the music references within the video, we're living in this, coming back to the slow cancellation of the future thing, which we can't seem to get away from. We're no longer in a time that, like, what's the classic example? Like, Kraftwerk, the band, is still future music, right? We're short on examples of things that are the next thing. It's this self-referential cycle of things that vaguely recall a culture where something felt substantive. The example of Oliver Tree in this scenario is actually quite funny, because Oliver Tree to me represents something that I'm like, what the fuck is this for? Who are you for? Yet in the sort of like offshoots of Oliver Tree now seems wholesome in hindsight, where you're like, he actually has like a couple tunes that are pretty decent. Counter to like, what comes off of the genuine article. So yeah, I don't know what to say about it exactly. I don't like. I heard a story about Jerry Sue, the skateboarder, like snapping a picture of Malcolm Hurd at a skate park in LA, like Jerry Sue being like a cool skateboard photographer guy. And like, there's something about a skateboarder, like ironically prioritizing a rollerblader in like their art book, or like Alex Olson some years ago, like reposted Abibas, where you're so cool within skateboarding that the next like heterodox move you can make is like to either semi shit on rollerblading / semi act like, oh, these guys these are the crazy guys out here, nobody fucking likes these guys, and they've got the balls to like get out and be at the skate park or whatever. There's something about that I'm like, I don't care what your motivation is, like fuck you. This is not for you. We're not here for you. You don't get to like profit or capitalize or participate at all. So I think that's kind of where I have a little bit of a sensitivity to it, where it's like it's a chronically ironic take or something, that like there's just I don't know where the earnest thing lives in it, and because I'm a geriatric asshole at this point, I require some piece of that, rather than like a daisy chaining of multiple ironic references on top of one another.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was that hidden beneath the fashion, the cool like analog filming and cinematic styling, it still had the same feel as a CKY skit from 20 years ago, but it was hidden beneath the fashion and the hyperpop music. And I can't tell anymore what is fucking I feel like sincerity is like a radical act these days.
That's the clip right there, Joey.
That
Yeah.
sincerity is almost more punk than any kind of maybe punk's not the right word.
No,
You
it's
feel it harder
yeah.
than anything else. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? The daily bread thing just like pissed me off on a larger level. That it wasn't just like, you know, the Julio wall ride cover from VG4.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's in the background of that. There was BJ Bernhardt frontsiding a ledge, like slash stance frontside, and he's photoshopped in like peeing against the wall. There's like a series. There was lots, like somebody went and dug into Daily Breads.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, I would give props if this is if the character, if he releases multiple music videos and he is this rollerblade filmer character,
Yeah.
I would give it more credit. But if this is just a one-off thing to launch it, the intentions are so bizarre too. Like what exactly he wants to do with this imagery. And I can't help but feel that it is ironic beneath layers of whatever the Zoomer shit is right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm with you. I'm holding back certain things that like, yeah.
But it's not for me too. It's not for me. It's not for you.
Correct. That's part of it, and I'm kind of okay with that. And I think it might be. There's even something about the look, right, of the like the propped up beanie like this with the Oakleys. That's like I couldn't possibly care if I wanted to. Like it's like I couldn't. It's not. I'm not capable of sincerity. Everything is a gag. That I don't. Maybe it's that like I actually don't think that's funny or something. Or maybe I'm just like a clown that's like hooked on like meaning or the illusion of meaning or something like that. And yeah, I think there's it might be something deeper that it's actually like a disappointment in this sort of like and perhaps every generation feels this, right? That like that the youth that comes before it should always be at the bleeding edge of things. And perhaps this is the ultimate boomer take to believe that like this is in fact the one generation where the one that comes before it is in fact like less critical. However, the world seems remarkably insincere. And yeah, I think perhaps there's something about, like seeing a diminishing meaning in the things that like will come after you. And I feel no like strong legacy thing like we need to pass on skating or that's not where any of this is coming from. It's just a like maybe it's that like the experience every spring, right, that you're like enamored by the like the like flowers, right, or like holy shit, winter ended and like a natural process displayed itself. Like what an absolute miracle and what a tiny mote I am, in this like vast array of consciousness. And then you're kind of like, this is the best we could do. Like boiling this thing down into like an AI-able right. On one hand, I'm kind of like, maybe this kid actually, I also don't want to be so focused on this individual because I know nothing about him or his intentions or anything. I'm not even being critical of him as an individual, just using it as a thought experiment. guy knows enough about Daily Bread. Like maybe that came from his personal stack at home, which again has two sort of like decision trees that go off it, which is like, well, it would have been nice if you like paid that a little bit more respect rather than, or I don't know, like I'm okay with people like shitting on it. But there's like, I don't know, there's something just quite disappointing about feeling like nothing to leave it to, or I don't know, just a confusion about how things will be condensed into tiny bite-sized chunks, for some for like an AI to communicate what happened. I don't know, it almost feels like, have you ever had this experience like I don't know what your dating or history or relationship history is like, but I felt at the end of a long relationship this kind of moment that like it was just this blip, like you feel the whole arc of something kind of like condense. You feel like time condense into a moment, and I think there's something about the like inability to be in concert, just the reality of the inability to be in concert with time that is like part of the human condition, and this experience of like using what we can observe to sort of delineate time, right? Like to stay within skating, where kind of like modern era skating happens around 98 and the wheels get smaller and the postures all start looking familiar. And then, like basketball shorts happen here and so on and so forth. And it's all like reference. I'm feeling that like physically within skating now, where yeah, like the references are all kind of incongruent with each other and not really meaning anything, and irony is much more potent than sincerity, and what would sincerity even look like if it could exist? Yes.
Yeah, the Mark Fisher, he says that there's no present to articulate anymore,
Right.
which captures it really well. And then the point that you said, so let's just say this Evan Fong music video, or let's just say there is like a pop culture reference of rollerblading that they did it right. And then I'm asking myself the question, I'm like, what is that? What would that even be? I don't even know what that is personally. So I don't know what proper representation of skating is. So in a way, he achieved something by creating that confused, jumbled mess of time and all those references. But I'm so used to rollerblading being referenced in an ironic way over pop culture for like the last 30 years
Yeah.
that I don't even know. The Daily Bread thing just brought it to a level of specifics that I was not expecting on his Instagram account. And then it makes me think about, I'm a rollerblade filmer guy. Like, am I like, I'm a character? What the fuck? I
Right.
don't know. I don't know how to say. He's Canadian too, I think. I think he's Canadian, which was surprising. And I think he can actually play the guitar. Like he's a talented musician, which surprised me too. And then the cynical part of me was like that Benson Boone guy that has been skating standards and doing flips. His
Haven't seen
On
him.
his album cover, he's wearing rollerblades, not standards, but just like rollerblading is part. And then part of me is thinking like the record company, they're like, Benson Boone's doing this rollerblading thing. Maybe you could do like an Oliver Tree thing with rollerblades. And it's like, I just feel so cynical about it all. Maybe it's more sincere than we think, like you said.
No, I think we're actually kind of pointing at some of the same things with this, all of these things being some marketing ploy, right? That like uh there's a video game called Catherine, which is it's like an RPG, a Japanese RPG that within it, part of the game is you're like you have to go to sleep and you have this dream, and within the dream you're basically like moving through these puzzles of like you're kind of like climbing up this tower, and there are different like blocks falling. I've never actually played it, but I've watched people play it. And Catherine is not an exceptionally popular game, but the puzzle portion of the game is now a competitively played game that like people will play at tournaments and things like that. Which pardon me for this long-winded reference, but there's something about this thing that feels like these activities were all like produced in the furnace of some marketing plan, right? And like somehow we've just like survived, the plan. But we're comparing ourselves to some other disciplines, or I've done a lot of this, right, where I'm comparing what we do to other athletic outlets or athletic pursuits, and you have a game, think of like tennis, right, which is a lot of these things are employed in the same way, right? You can't watch a sporting event without being absolutely like fucked in the face with advertising. It's all part of it, but also a lot of these sports have, to come back to like the word that landed here, like pedagogical components to them, like ways to develop what good or bad technique is, paths to different ways to make a living within it. And so I think something that feels particularly frustrating is like we have this opportunity to do something from the heart, right? Or we're like excited about these things that feel quite true, like the people, everybody's here because they want to be here, or like in many ways I think it's almost something like people that can't help themselves, like they can't help but be associated with this thing. That's just, it's like I'm resigned to it. I would have jumped ship 6 times now, but fucking here I am. Which I feel a lot of alignment and sympathy for that person. Like I am that person.
Me too.
Yeah. It's like knowing better or something. But yeah, then like there's no way, never the twain shall meet, right? Like we've had some of these, we have some of these examples. Skateboarding is in the Olympics. Skateboarding is now playing with these like exhibition matches, like this PSL thing. I don't know if you've seen any of this. Professional Skateboard League, I think it's called.
Oh, I know. I just knew that there was a new league launched, but I haven't looked into it.
Yeah. I think we're like at the edge of 6 different things, right? There's lots of people here who are aggressively trying. When I say here, I mean like within skating, right? Like new retail spaces, new competition circuits, the struggle to produce new users of said technology, and we're also being squeezed economically in new ways, on a much wider scale that has nothing to do with eggs are $11, right? Eggs are nearly $1 an egg USD for the fancy eggs here. And I think it's hard to ask these questions at the same time when I think the likelihood that we are going to be squeezed in more, to a degree that we haven't felt in the West. And it's confusing to figure out how to prioritize this activity that you love, also catch ironic strays from someone who seems like they're your cohort member. It's confounding. I feel kind of at a loss, and the Mark Fisher stuff is about as close as I can get to sense making in it.
Can I read you a passage before we go?
Oh, I'd love that.
Not of Mark Fisher. A passage from Quinny is Just Living on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
The reason people aren't skating like they used to is the guys that could have stopped and moved on from skating, and the rest of the skaters are either too scared to get hurt or flat out aren't good enough to do those tricks or skate those spots. You can say all you want that focusing on style and doing a soul grind on a curb is a choice you're making. But let's be honest. If you were good enough to work on your style and 450 back royale a drop rail with the same amount of safety as soul grinding a curb, you'd be doing it. That's not the trend anymore is such bullshit. The difference now is most skaters aren't making the choice to skate smaller obstacles and do easier tricks. The choice is being made for them. The general population of skaters isn't as skilled or athletic anymore. It's just a fact.
Oh my God.
I can just leave you with that. You don't have to reply to that. You can reply to it next episode.
Can I say one thing? Maybe two things. Quinn makes some points, and I almost don't want to like mention his name.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's Quinny is Just Living.
Quinn is Just Living.
He's just living.
Yeah. I can say there's a pretty good chance. Let's say I went to Woodward with this person when we were 14, just for the sake of discussion.
Okay.
I'm not saying that really happened.
Okay.
But a contextual reference that's important to think to this is a person who could not make something look good if he wanted to. It is not to the thing that he references as a physical impossibility for these people. He has the same physical impossibility to produce anything uniquely containing these sparkles that we talk about. Something that suggests something else that doesn't require amplitude. Like he couldn't see it if he wanted to. And I think it's his case makes sense when it's made in a loud voice. And so commonly the people who make the counter case to him, they don't have to say anything at all because it's that physical culture. Like it's one of the obstacles that we're up against as skate crisisers is that, many of the things that we're saying are often better stated physically in the act itself. It doesn't cover everything, but I think it's important to remember like the things that get like woven into the tapestry of this thing, of the canvas of this thing that like truly belong there. It has nothing to do with this linear progression of why 3 hard spin topsoul is slightly less than 450 back rail on like that whole conversation just doesn't live in there, and it will live only in places like YouTube comments for something like Quinn is Living.
Yeah, when I read that, he's talking about a different activity.
Correct.
That we don't even look at it the same way at all. Like we're both wearing skates, but we're doing a completely separate thing. And I think I know that now. But it's still integrated. It's still part of these people still skate.
Yep.
So anyways,
it's also like if the need to go to do this like better than, less than kind of thing. Like I'm very capable of celebrating both of those things.
Yep.
Until you tell me that I'm wrong, which, as we know, I never am. So that's probably where I start to draw the line. Also, he references this, people that have stopped doing it, himself included. Your version of the game is on this tiny timeline because you couldn't evolve. Like, if you want to make me play that better than, less than, like, finite game victory thing, sure. Like, maybe you're only interested in sprints and people who are 25. Just make the case that it's a longer race, right? I don't, I'm not suggesting that I'm right, but just with a tiny, like, tweak of your lens, or a fraction of an increase on the timeline, suddenly you lose, where, like, all you could see was spinning to the down rail and the, like, broken wrists and dislocated shoulders that come with that, which, like, there's tons of beautiful heroic stuff that happened through that, and it inspired me as a younger person, and many parts of me wish sometimes to see something and wish I still had that in me. Another part of me is, like, proud that I was willing to, like, I'm going through it right now, definitely feeling like my body's resistance to the way that I've asked myself to skate in the last couple of years. And it's like, it's going, like, I know think you're having fun. You need to evolve again, or you're going to be up against it again. And that's where it feels distinctly like two different activities, again and again and again. Or, more like, it's almost something like, it's like grief or something, like being willing to, like, like, actually inhabit the experience, and just, instead of going, like, okay, I'm done with this. Now I could just be, like, not in my physical body anymore. Where I think many of us are. Yeah, that was kind of the beautiful thing from our pandemic era of skating, of watching lots of people kind of, like, come back to something. One of my favorite moments from a Skatability workshop was connecting with this guy who described his experience, like, during, like, an ayahuasca ceremony, and he was, like, deep in some kind of profound psychedelic grief, like, huge self investigation, the absence of his ego, and, at the bottom of that experience, he was like, what was the point in my life where I was the happiest? And he said, like, in a challenging psychedelic experience, and where he had to sort of, like, kind of muscle for the messages that were in it. Like, when he asked this question, like, when was I the happiest, like, absolutely instantaneously, he was like, oh, rollerblading around my neighborhood when I was a kid. And then he, like, that's what led him back to skating. So yeah, say what you will about, the drop rails or whatever. Like, I'm so fucking tired of that argument, and you're boring, and I don't like you.
Damn. That story is a good way to end it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because Glenn Plake says skiing is one of the best ways in the world to waste time.
Nice.
And I'd love to apply that to skating. That, yeah, you will never regret a session on your deathbed, even the bad ones. So
Yeah, what's
Maybe
that
not
Kurt Vonnegut quote? Like, you're here to waste time, something like that. Hold on, give me a second. Nah, never mind. I suck.
Me too.
Yeah, I'll post it on something.
Okay.
Or just cut
Well,
that part out.
no, we're leaving it in. We just
Okay.
have to leave a block of silence for fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Ben, until Skate Crisis 6, it's been amazing. And we might have a special guest next round if we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'm down for that, and we'll have lots to talk about following lots of new products, Winter Clash, hopefully some sunny weather returning to North America, and yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Happy Monday. Every Monday is going to be a new surprise in the news. Buckle up, everybody, at least in North America. Okay.
Love you, Joe.
Love you.